Of studying criminology. This is what we are going to study today. So, criminology encompasses a number of disciplines, drawing on methods and techniques developed in both the natural and the social sciences, as do other disciplines. Criminology distinguishes between the pure and the applied research and between the statistical and the intuitive ways of thinking. More than most other disciplines, however, criminological research depends upon the willing cooperation of governmental agencies and other public authorities for the provision of essential data. Now, the manner and extent of data collection differ considerably from country to country and even within countries that have federal systems. Variables include how often data are collected and published, what items are given importance, whether the choice is between complete listings or sample survey, and what the ratio between governmental and private research is. This differences combined with differences in law and legal administration and in popular views and habits have made it difficult to devise a meaningful system of international criminal statistics and to compare national statistics that are collected separately. The most common data used in criminological research are official statistics, which are collected as part of operation of criminal justice agencies. For example, police collect data on crimes they know about and on the people they arrest for committing those crimes. Courts collect data on the cases that are brought to them and on the outcomes of those cases, including convictions. And prison and jails, as well as probation and parole agencies, collect data on the people under their jurisdiction. In all the cases, the usefulness of official criminal statistic depends on human factors such as the willingness of private individuals to report criminal events to the police to officially respond to the criminal event and of court official to prosecute the case. Because these decisions depend on a variety of factors, including whether the criminal laws at issue are popular or unpopular, whether the criminal event occurs in a high crime or low crime area, and whether the victim or offender is a member of minority group, they are not very reliable as a measure of amount of crime in a society or of changes in amount of crime over time. To overcome problems and with official statistics, researchers in many countries have utilized victimization surveys in which random samples of the population are generally asked whether they have been victims of crime within a specified period of time. Although these surveys have methodological problems, example, they rely entirely on the memory of victim, they have generally been more accurate than official statistics in display trends in crime over time. These surveys have often been conducted by governmental agencies such as the US Census Bureau, which began its annual survey in 1972. Many other countries later implemented victim surveys, including Britain, France, Germany, Sweden, Canada, Israel, and New Zealand. The United Nations also sponsors an international crime victim survey. So, criminologists supplement the official statistics with self report surveys in which people are asked if they have committed any offenses of a particular kind, usually conducted by individual criminologists rather than by government agencies. These studies generally survey juveniles rather than adults, and they typically ask respondents about relatively minor criminal events rather than very serious ones. Nevertheless, the combined information from self report surveys, victimization surveys, and official statistics will generally provide a more accurate description of crime. Case studies. So, the case study, also called the individual case history, concentrates on the career or life of one individual or group of individual and is the method used primarily Though not exclusively by psychologists, psychiatrists, and psychoanalysis, although the method has some shortcomings, such histories can provide insights into the personalities and motives of criminals. The number of criminological case studies has grown steadily, but their reliability is sometimes suspect. Their publication is comparatively rare. Professional ethics often forbid the exposure of details given confidentially, and those studies actually published may be typical of the general subject they attempt to explore. In similar vein, autobiographies and other books written by criminals can cast light on criminal motives and acts. Despite their considerable human and scientific interest, however, such works generally suffer from significant disadvantages, including a lack of objectivity. Typologist. So, typologist involves classifying offenses or offenders according to some criteria of relatedness or similarity. For example, criminologists have made many attempts to arrange offenders into categories such as normal or abnormal and habitual or professional, and to develop a continuum of criminals that would extend from the insane at one extreme through various career criminals, petty offenders, and white collar criminals to organized or professional criminals at other extreme. The typological method, while broader than the case study, is not so broad as the statistical method, being less impersonal and heterogeneous than the method and less individual or specific than the case study. The method, developed initially in Germany and Australia, has been criticized because it attempts to reduce complex phenomena to simple terms while tending to ignore important individual differences. Despite its considerable intuitive appeal, its problems seem to outweigh its benefits, and it consequently is not often used. Now, experimental methods. So, a controlled experiment involves taking two closely related situations or groups, subjecting one of them to a specific stimulus, and comparing the subsequent characteristics of both. In the past, so called experiments by judicial, penal, and reformatory institutions were not really controlled or even experimental in the scientific sense, because public agencies consider themselves bound by the idea of justice to give equal treatment to equal, rather than one kind of treatment to one group and another kind to another group. By 1980, however, public criminal justice agencies were more willing to engage in experimental research. Police in Minneapolis, for example, participated in controlled random experiment on the use of arrest of domestic violence situations. When police encountered domestic violence, the decision of whether to arrest the offender was determined by random assignment, and these events were recorded for the next 6 months. The results indicated that if the offender was arrested and spent one night in jail, the incidence of repeat domestic violence against the same victim in the next 6 months was halved. It was halved. The research had a significant impact on police policies regarding domestic violence throughout the US, and because of such significant result, experimental research became more common in criminology and criminal justice. Such experimentation is nonetheless criticized by justice officers and public, largely because they continue to believe that equal treatment should be accorded to equals. Nevertheless, its use has been spreading largely because it seems to be the most effective means of determining whether police policies actually produce their intended effects. Then comes the prediction studies. So, criminological prediction attempts to forecast the future conduct of persons under certain conditions, whether based on statistics, case histories, or a combination of both. The predictions indicate the likelihood that a specific individual or group will be affected by certain conditions or treatment. Thus, for example, some people who commit some kinds of crime, such as drug or sex offense, are considered fairly like to recidivate, while people who commit crimes such as murder are considered fairly unlikely to recidivate. Although statistical prediction can never be conclusive and can merely show certain probabilities, the method can be valuable in supplements the inevitably limited person experience of judges and administrators. In the last decades of 20th century, prediction research became a very popular criminological method. Now is the action research. So, action research, which is often contrasted with experimental research, consists of drawing upon the observations of field workers and other persons directly involved with delinquents, potential delinquents, or prisoners. For example, social workers have attempted to help children and adolescents living in slums cope with their problems and at the same time have studied their delinquent behavior, related it to their environment, and evaluated the results of youth clubs or other services offered. Action research attempts to achieve practical results through collaboration with field workers. Trying to build a bridge between abstract theories and practical work, it often dispenses with formal hypotheses and simply aims at identifying and implementing tactics and activities that will help prevent delinquent behavior. The best known and perhaps most successful example was Clifford Shaw's Chicago area project, carried out during the 1920s and 30s, which applied the ecological theories of University of Chicago sociologist Robert Park and Ernest Burgess in an attempt to motivate local residents to deal with the social problems of their neighborhoods.